So welcome to be a process engineer for a day. You might start by saying, well, what is a process engineer? Process engineering is a form of chemical engineering. And again, what does that mean? Well, chemical engineering is really where we look at different processes. It's where we take raw materials and we add value through different processes to create very valuable products. And there's lots of examples of this. One obvious one, certainly where a lot of chemical and process engineers find jobs, might be in the oil and gas industry, taking the raw hydrocarbon from the ground and doing all sorts of processes to it, like separation processes and combination processes, to create that very valuable product, that fuel that might use to power vehicles and all sorts of activities. And there's lots of other industries where process and chemical engineers work. For example, they work in the food and drinks industry, taking raw materials again, vegetables and oils and sugars, combining them in a way that creates a high-value product, the food and drink that we can take from the shelves of our supermarkets. Now, today we're going to look at the fragrance industry. Again, another very high-value product. Very small, with a lot of money and a lot of value in a very, very small product by volume as well as by weight. So how do we go from the very raw materials, and how does the process engineer design the manufacture and the process of that high value product from those raw materials? We'll get to that in a bit, but let's take first of all a look at something that we use a lot of in Heriot-Watt University. This is a process trainer, and it describes to you hopefully some of the processes that might be incorporated in the design of or the production of many of these high value products. So over here we have something like a hot water tank. This is a heater tank used to add heat to something. That in itself is a process. There are a series of pumps as we look around here as well. And this helps to move the product or the raw material from one process to another. There are other examples of what we can do here, different processes. For example, this is a cooler, a heat exchanger. And we have a process vessel here. This also has a heat exchange coil as well as a mixer here that can help to agitate the liquid, perhaps, as it is in the vessel. The whole process trainer then has a number of sensors, whether they're measuring its temperature, the flow rate, the pressure, the level in the tank. All of these can feed back into the system to automate a process. Again, helping to take a raw material or a series of raw materials, combine them, perhaps in different ways, at different temperatures, at different pressures, to create that eventual high-value product that process engineers design. So the role then of the chemical engineer and the process engineer is to design that process, to optimize that process, to do it in a very economical way so that you're adding value each way, and of course, then getting that ultimate economic return from it. So today the process will be, again, to look at a very high value product. It's going to look at fragrance. How are we going to combine different things together to extract and develop a very high value product, fragrance? We're going to look at that in a stepwise way, going from process 1 to 2 to 3, and in each way, adding value along the way until you get to that high-end product. But I hope you're able to draw some parallels for very different industries, whether it's looking at sustainable fuels, or whether it's looking at the desalination of water, or other high-value products. The process engineer and the chemical engineer have a huge role to play in the development of new products, making new products more efficient, making them more sustainable, and supporting the more sustainable future for everybody.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Nasser Al-Lakta and I am the Program Director of Studies for Chemical Engineering here at Heriot-Watt University in Dubai. And today I will be shortly presenting for you what we mean by process engineering and more about why the fragrance perfume industry is very important, and as a process engineer you will be contributing to its development. So now when we talk about perfume, actually it comes under a bigger category, which is fragrances. And the fragrances are wide range. Perfume, aftershave, and even in many of cosmetic products. Now, why people are seeking or looking for fragrances, even in products that actually not as a perfume, because people, the sense of smell is actually the first one that make contact with most of the things around us. So if you smell something nice, usually this is will make you happier, make you get more engaged with the product. So for example, one of the studies found out that people, when they smell nice, smells like fresh, what we call it a fresh smell, when they're, for example, they they link the smell, that nice smell, the fresh smell, to being clean. Because actually also when we go outside and we see that it's a greenery, it's nice, the day over on the beach and the air is fresh, we can assume that it's clean. So that's why many products are adding more and more smells to ignite that sense and make people go and buy it. So how we can achieve a nice smell is any fragrance consisted of 3 notes. We have the base notes, middle notes, and the top notes. Now, the top notes is usually the one when you open your perfume bottle or any perfumed product, that's the first smell. And usually it evaporates very quickly. Now, when you are spraying, perfume or eau de cologne or aftershave, now what stays is usually the middle notes and also the base notes. However, most of the perfumes, the majority of the ingredients are from middle notes. Okay, so usually we have a small amount of top notes, small amount of base notes, but the majority will be the middle notes that is gonna stay with us. So top notes, that's what we say create the first impression. So that give us the spark and make impact. And that's also what will link us and say, this smells fresh or spicy or woody, or flowery. And some of the most famous ones are the citrus notes, the aromatic, herbal notes, spicy notes, and so on. And when you go and watch the videos for the different tasks, you will see that the top note is we use citrus, lemon, orange, we use some cinnamon, we use other spices like black pepper. This is to create these top notes. The middle notes is the one that usually is give us, most of the smell, and then after a period of time, of course, it will evaporate and the base note will be there. Some of the typical ingredients that give us middle notes, floral notes, fruity notes, spicy notes, and different ones. And usually these ones comes as oils, what we call them essential oils. And the base notes is actually the carrier that will carry all the other notes and stay for a long time. Most famous ones, for example, vanilla, woody, musk, and iris, and there are different ginger. They are strong and they can carry other notes without losing their smell. There are different raw materials. There are raw materials as notes, and there are materials that come from different sources, like from animals, from vegetables, and of course, from synthetic, human made up notes or ingredients, and that we will talk very shortly. Now, how we can achieve the desired smell, the desired perfume, because if you go and check, there are hundreds of different types of perfumes with different smells. That's where we come with the olfactory families, that you do combination. And there is what we call perfume radar. You will find it in your notes, that perfume radars, that if you achieve the right combination between these different notes, you can end with a floral, oriental, woody, fresh, and so on. Now, usually when we are talking about perfume, the first thing come to us is flowers, roses, and that's where we produce. And these are the traditional family of olfactory smells. right? So also include in it the woody, the leather family, the herbal, and so on. But in these years, we start getting more and more, for example, what we call aquatic family, or fresh family, or citrus family, or the fruity family, or even spicy. There are some perfumes, when you smell them, you feel spicy. So people start moving from the traditional to more advanced smell. Again, all depends on how you combine the different notes. Now, what we will be doing during the different tasks today, guys, we are producing traditional perfumes. In other words, natural perfumes. And you will see that even when we are using synthetic ingredients, we are still aiming for a smell that might be woody, flowery, oriental, spicy, or whatever. However, the issue with natural perfume, the shelf life for it is very short. And that's why you will notice also when we explain to you different tasks, if you want to keep the smell and make sure it is strong enough, you need to keep adding over different periods of times. However, the biggest advantage of this, they are biodegradable and we are not harming the environment. We are using, and most of the time we are using wastes, dry flower petals, dry spices, dry herbs that maybe we will not be using it in our cooking. So actually, we are reusing them, recycling them. However, most of the perfumes, especially the commercial brands, they are synthetic perfumes. We are going in the lab, creating an artificial ingredient that will give you the smell of a rose, the smell of musk, the smell of freshness or what. Now, why we do that? There are different reasons. Of course, the mass production is very important, especially as I said at the start, we need now this fragrance to be included in many industries, not just the perfume, even in food and beverages and so on. So we cannot keep extracting natural ingredients from the environment. For example, there are high costs like iris, or over-harvesting like sandalwood, or even they are now illegal to extract them, like the musk. Because very simple, if you want to get 1 kilogram of rose oil, you need 4 tons of roses. So imagine the size of the farm, the size of the land we are using just to produce perfume, while we can use it for other purposes. So that's why we are depending more and more on synthetic. To do that, to move from small scale, what we will be doing in the lab or in your kitchen, and move it to the large scale, we need the process engineering. So we need to be able to apply different sciences, to apply the rules of mathematics, to convert raw materials to value-added products. These rose petals, if I don't use them, they will be thrown away. So I need a process to extract all the oil. Or I don't want to harm the environment, so let me make synthetic materials that when I blend them will give me my final product as a perfume. Now, most important thing is we want them to be affordable, and also we need to look and make sure they are sustainable. We are not harming the society, we are not harming the environment. So we need to look into the economics and the sustainability aspect of any process. Now, as a process engineer, or if you would like to call yourself chemical engineer, biochemical engineer, there are depends most of the time on the industries. You will be doing designing, modifying, and operating processes in different industries: electricity, petrol, chocolate, cosmetics, cars, aspirin. So if I want to give them in as big families, we can look into working in chemical products in general, or food and beverages, or in pharmaceuticals, or energy, or oil and gas, and so on. So actually, as a process engineer, you can contribute to any industry, because either in the part of design, the part of modification, or the part of operating. So what we mean by process? Process simply similar to a recipe. If you want to bake a cake, you cannot just add all the ingredients without proper measurement, without a proper procedure, step by step, to get a nice cake. And that's make the big difference between good baking and bad baking. The same thing. To get a nice perfume, to get a nice final product, you have to follow a procedure. This procedure is the process. There will be a starting point and ending point. And between them, there are different steps that we need to take them in sequence. Of course, there are many rules governing the process. The scientific rules, mathematical rules, economic rules, sustainability rules, and so on. Also, we are aiming for simple processes, but sometimes, unfortunately, we might end with a complex process. So also we need to know how we design it, how we can simplify it, or even if we couldn't simplify it, how to make sure we are operating it the right way. So if we look in the perfume production process, first of all, we need raw materials. We already talked about the notes and other raw ingredients. Usually, we use what we call it the unscented base oil that is carrying the smells. Then we add the essential oils, which in the order of base, middle, and top notes. Okay, so that's how we add it. And you will see in your handouts, there are some suggestions about how much the percentage between them. It's between 30 base, 50 middle, 20, but you can change. If you don't like the smell, you can change it. Now, after we do that blending between our essential, we need to start packing, and then we take samples and we do quality control. Is it meeting our standards or not? Now, you will see that one of the tasks, we are simply using flowers, herbs, spices. We're trying to crush them and add them to the base oil and leave it sometimes. Or you will see later that actually we are using essential oils with alcohol, with other chemicals to have better quality and longer shelf life. Okay? So there are different raw materials. We can say, for example, I have A, B, C, and D. Okay, A usually is the base oil. C and D and B, C, and D are the essential oils. We mix them by different ratios. Here, for example, we gave you an example of 20, 15, 45. So that's why there is actually in the handout a link for a website that if you click on any perfume, will give you the distribution and will give you the different notes. Either they are natural or synthetic, artificial. After we do that, we need the blending. Usually simple mixer. Okay, we don't want any reactions here, guys, because the reaction might give me undesired products, undesired smells. So we need to make sure that our oils are not reactive. After that, we start packing them. So for example, when you will see that the people who are on campus, they will get Heriot-Watt packaging, where you can add your sample and take it with you home. And as we said, usually it's better if you can leave it for a period of time to concentrate, to make it better. So this is the packaging. And I'm sure that you've seen different types of packaging. This is part of the marketing, right? Which one is appealing for the people. Then after that, we need the quality control. I need to take a sample, analyze it in the lab, make sure it's contain all what we are having on the label. I'm telling people we have 10% of this, 20% of that. I need to make sure. And also it's meeting our standards. Now, if you want to store your fragrance, very important to make sure that your perfume or any perfumed product away from heat, away from light, away from oxygen. In other words, make sure it's sealed and not mixing it with any other chemicals. If you do that, you can, with unopened, without being in contact with any undesired environment, you can keep it up to 2 years. So perfumes can stay up to 2 years and you still have a good smell of it. However, with the advancements of industry, people start saying, why don't I use these nice smells with other products? So for example, your dishwashing liquid. In dishwashing liquid, you cannot have the majority of your perfume to be middle or base notes, because no one likes to eat from a dish that is perfumey, because it will interact with the food. So usually the majority of the smell of your detergent is the top notes. The minute you open it, you wash it, and you rinse it with water, that's it. There is no smell. But it's nice when you are doing the dishes to have that smell. On the other side, people more and more would like to have their clothes to smell nice. And that's why washing detergent and also fabric softener, they have more of middle and base notes. So they will stay in your clothes for a period of time. And I'm sure that you saw some adverts. They say the smell will stay for 24 hours, 48 hours, and so on. That's again. So once again, as an engineer, it's your duty to meet the demands of the consumers. So if they are interested in perfumes, you work with them. If they are interested in dishwashing liquid, you have to work with top notes. The other way, you have to work more. And so you will see in the slides that we will share with you different recipes. Like for example, Eau de Toilette is usually 25-25 top and middle and 50% base. However, when we go, for example, for dishwashing liquid, 60% top, 35 middle, and the base just 5%, and so on. So you will notice, depending on your desired product, you will modify your process to get that final product. And that's hopefully, you will, when you look into the tasks, you will see that we are doing actually 2 or 3 different routes, similar raw materials, similar products, but how we take these raw materials to the final products by different methods, depending on what is your desirable final product. All right, so now we will start talking about the task for making perfume. If you look in the handouts that has been provided to you, you will find there are 2 alternatives recipes for making perfumes. The first one, we might consider it easier, straightforward, but once again, it's 100% natural process, 100% biodegradable ingredients, and that's what we can 100% sustainable. So, once again, if you go back to your handouts, and also will be shown to you on the screen, as we said, perfume in the perfume engineering is how to achieve the desired scent by mixing in the right order and in the right way, in other words, the right recipe of different notes, base notes, middle notes, top notes, so we end with our final products. Now, you will see, like for the first recipe you will be talking, we will all the time start with the carrier, which is simply unscented oil. One of the most used one is almond oil, but there are different ones. For example, jojoba oil, avocado oil, they can be used. Now, why we need the carrier? Well, the carrier is simply will be hugging all the ingredients, allowing them to be mixing, but at the same time will not be affecting the final scent. In this simple and very, very quick process, you need to use, for example, rose petals, or you can use leaves, you can use herbs, and it's preferred to use them dry. So you can get dry lavender, for example, or dry rose petals, or dry herbs, dry rosemary, dry other herbs. I cannot remember the names of the herbs. Why we want them dry? Because when they are still fresh, there is a high content of water, and water will dilute the scent. So when you have them dry, very simply, even if you have them fresh, put them in the sun for few hours or overnight. Then this makes the scent concentrated. All right? So when you get them dry, all you need is get some of them. Again, it depends on what do you want. As we said, and again in the handout, you will find the wheel of scents. Do you want it woody? Do you want it spicy? Do you want it floral? So it depends on the scent you are looking for. You start mixing. So for example, here, if we add some of these flowers, now we can add them, or if you want to get more scent of them, you might want to crush them. Okay? So when you are crushing them, you are allowing the aromatics, the scent, to be released. Okay, so we add them here, for example. We can now add other notes. So for example, we can add some ginger, and this is a base note. Okay, then we can add some middle notes. Maybe we can add some black pepper, and here you are looking about spicy. Okay, and then you can add some of the top notes. So for example, here we'll add sweet orange zest. Okay, now then all you need is add that base oil that will cover your material. Mix them, and when you are mixing, if you want to crush more, that's good. And you can start smelling actually for when you do that. Then you close it, and it's good if you want to mix it for like a minute or so. Now, as we said before, we don't recommend using clear glass. It should be dark glass. The easiest type of glass, that jars you can get, are the brown ones. Why? This is, again, you need to find out. Why perfumes are usually put in a containers that is not clear. Okay, clear glass. And even if it's clear glass, you will see it's covered by some type of plastic or something to make it look nicer, but at the same time, to me, the purpose of not having clear containers. Now, the idea behind natural perfumes is giving the oil with all these scented ingredients time to start sipping out. You know, this scent will start sipping out on the oil. All right? So you should leave it in a dark, dry place for 2 weeks. Now, within these 2 weeks, you might check it after a few days and see if the scent you are aiming for, as we said, woody, spicy, flowery, is not strong enough. You can, all you need is sieve it, remove, get only the oil, the liquid, then add a new dry leaves, petals, herbs, mix it again, put it, and do it. So maybe 2-3 times during these 2 weeks till you achieve your desired note, scent. All right? Then you put it in a reasonable jar. Usually we prefer it if it's with a spray. Now, if you do that, you might need to add some water, so it will be easy to spray. And also you might add 2 drops of glycerin. Now, glycerin is very easy for you to get from pharmacy or even from the supermarkets. This as a preserve to hold, you know, your perfume for longer time. So this is straightforward, easy to make, but once again, we have to say the shortcoming of this method. Unfortunately, since it's 100% natural, with time, the scent will start getting weaker and weaker. So if you want longer shelf life, longer time for your scent, you need to use synthetic ingredients. And that's what we will show you in the second method, where we're gonna use alcohol. And if you have the chance to look into any of perfume, eau de toilette, aftershave, you will find that there is a reasonable amount of alcohol in it. It's a carrier, it also helps in the spraying, and also it's considered as the first note that will evaporate very quickly, and what stays is the middle notes and the base notes. So after we finished with the first route, where we started with similar raw materials with very simple mixing, we ended with a product. Hopefully it smelled nice. Now, if we are moving into a wee bit more advanced route to make it more durable and has longer shelf life, now we have to use some synthetic materials, some chemicals. But the principles are still the same. First, once again, we need 30 ml. You will see here I'm not measuring. This is for illustration, but when you are doing it, it's preferred to measure. Now, 30 ml of unscented almond oil is simply 2 tablespoons. Just get a tablespoon from your kitchen. Use 2 tablespoons will give you around 30 ml. So if we have 30 ml, okay, now we need to start adding the essential oils. Here you will see that the essential oils are coming from the different notes. And we will be adding around 30 drops or 30 milliliters. Okay? So when you are adding, there are some guidelines, and you will see in the handouts and also in the presentation that by changing the ratio between base notes, middle notes, and top notes, you will end with different types of perfume or even different types of scents that can be used in other industries like cosmetics, in food, in beverages, and so on. So here we are using, for example, what we call it 20, the basic line, 20, 50, 30. 20% of, I think 30% actually of base. So here ginger is considered base. So if we added the ginger and then we mix. So what we do is mix and smell, all right? Now, you feel that the ginger smell is not that strong enough and you want it to be more spicy, you add more ginger. Then we move to the middle notes. Now, middle notes, as we said, there are different types. For example, here we're gonna use lemongrass oil. Okay. Now, lemongrass oil, we will add like maybe 15 drops. Okay. So this is lemongrass. That's the middle note, and that's usually the essence of your perfume. The middle notes. All right, smells okay. Then we'll add the top notes. Top notes, you have maybe peppermint oil, mint oil, lemon oil, orange oil, lavender oil, different types of oils. Okay, so this what we are adding. You want to mix it, you can mix it. Now we close it, we shake it. Take a smell. Yes, and you can see the big difference actually after we added the zest and with the shaking. Now, this you can leave it for 38 hours and then you can continue. So this is again, guys, we are still in the natural. Now, you want it to become longer, we need to add alcohol. So we add 90 ml of alcohol, 6 tablespoons, 90. So we add the alcohol. Now, the alcohol we are using, guys, is ethanol. Now, ethanol can be found in the pharmacies. This is the medical alcohol, people are using it. And try to get high purity, okay? We shake it. Okay, you can smell the alcohol. Now, after we do this, we leave it for 48 hours. Once again, it should be in a dark glass jar. We leave it for 48 in a dry place in one of your cupboards. Then after this 48, you can smell it. You might see that you need to add a few drops and so on. Now, after you do that, the 48 hours minimum, what we do is adding water. Why we are adding water? To make it spray, easy to spray. So it's like around 30 ml of water. Now, if you want it easier to spray, add more water. If you want it to be oily, don't add water. Just leave it with the alcohol. Okay, now after adding the water, you need to vigorously shake it for 1 minute because that will extract more and more of the scents or the notes after, and you can see the change in the color. Okay, now after you're doing that, you add glycerin. Glycerin is just 2 drops. Okay, and glycerin is usually thick, guys, so you can control it very easily. All right, we shake it. Once again, we leave it for maybe, if you want it again more concentrated, leave it for a few days. Then put it in your labeled, in your spray jar, container, and then you can start using it. Now, I recommend before you do that is to strain it. If you used any fresh material like this stuff, they will stay in the perfume and it will start blocking your spray. So if you didn't use oils and liquids, purely liquids and oils, you need to strain any solids from it. As you can see, there is still some is hanging. Now, why the color changed and even the whole way it looks changed? We created an emulsion. All right, now water with alcohol with oil will create emulsion. Water and alcohol, they are totally soluble. The minute you put oil, you create an emulsion. Now you can see that in the house when you are adding, for example, lemon to your oil, you can see it's drop. You have to mix it to make lemony oil or whatever. So the same thing is here. All right. So the idea behind the glycerin is to keep this emulsion as emulsion and it will not separate. I hope that these two methods are straightforward. Once again, we showed you different methods, similar raw materials. We are meeting the different notes. We did different ways, simple mixing. No, we did some extraction from our dry rose petals, herbs, and leaves, and mix it again with. Or you want more industrial way of producing perfume by adding alcohol, glycerin, and different chemicals with the essential oils. You will hopefully end with similar products, a perfume with very nice scent that can be used for your own purposes. Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's 2 weeks later now, and we're back revisiting the samples that we have made here. And I got to say, my first impression, just looking at them, Mohammed, is that these do not look particularly appealing.
No, not yet. Well, now it started with the carrier oil. We have added the different tones to these mixtures, and it could be very simple, just like one of each, or it could get really complicated. Now, time to take all these solid parts and end with the concentrated oil, and then see what to do with it next.
Okay, but the point, I suppose, at this stage is it's not meant to necessarily look good, but hopefully it
smells good.
Hopefully. Okay,
this does.
Let me try yours. All right, that smells better than that one.
Yeah, I have to agree with this bit.
Well, what we've successfully done as process engineers is extracted these different tones into something that is quite intense. It's an intense smell, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what we're looking for as fragrance engineers in this case.
Yeah.
So what would the next step be? What's the next process?
Yeah. So taking the solid parts, you will end up with a little bit of oil in this case, but that can generate lots of a quantity if you want to add
that's
like
quite
alcohol.
intense as it is, and you're not necessarily diluting, but you're going to use that then to maybe create more.
Exactly. You could mix it with alcohol or water or mix of both. It depends on the application and what you want to use it for next. And then basically you have all seen spray bottles, and then you will get really fine liquid in there. And then even with the same fragrance, you decide how strong it will be, 20% or 30%, and they go as a totally different brands products in the market.
So that all still has to be designed into the eventual and final product. And of course, one important step here will be to strain it out, is to take those solid particles out, dilute it, and then eventually end up in a bottle that might look something like this one here.
True.
You were telling me earlier, it's a brown bottle for a good reason?
Yeah, so we normally use dark bottles to avoid the effect of light and stop any reaction that could happen because of the lights entering. Now, we are using these for demo purpose, so excuse that. But normally also you will see in the market perfumes comes with dark bottles most of the time. And if they are not, for whatever reason, they normally lose over time. How do they smell, or their intensity, or even the mix they have in as they started.
So one final thing then to think about here is this final or last or next to last process has taken a long time. This has taken 2 weeks. This kind of natural diffusion from the different ingredients into the base, into the
carrier oil.
And one of the jobs of a process engineer, of course, is to add value, and to add value as quickly as possible. So there's a whole field of process intensification that would speed up that process, extracting those tones quicker, creating more product at a larger scale, and then of course adding value and having all those positive economic values and creating more product at a quicker time.
Absolutely. And also nowadays we are tapping into sustainable approaches to do the same thing, or even selecting the materials you go with for the sake of having more sustainable operations.
Great. So we have given or taken one example of creating fragrance as one way of demonstrating the role that process engineers have. Of course, process engineers and chemical engineers work in a variety of fields, whether it is going to be creating the next vaccine, or creating the food and drink, creating fuels or fragrances like this. It's all about the value addition that you take from taking your raw product, adding value as you go from process to your eventual product that has a lot more value to it. I hope you've enjoyed being a chemical engineer or process engineer for a day, and we hope to see you in future events.